This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Tech, show number 115, recorded on May 2nd, 2013. Here on Home Tech, we cover all your favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in what was a really weird snow day. We had 2 inches of snow this morning when we woke up. It's all gone now, but May 2nd snow is weird here in Bellevue, Nebraska, and we post the show each week with world-class show notes out at the AverageGuy.tv. If you have questions, comments, or contributions, you can contact the show. Send me an email, podcast@theaverageguy.tv. And thanks to those who are sending me those emails. We always appreciate hearing from you, especially if you have ideas on what we can talk about on the show. And you can find me on Twitter @jcollison or follow the show schedule on Twitter @theaverageguy.tv. You can also join us for live chat during the show. If you're listening or you're watching in the live stream viewer, it's actually this direction. Over there. If you just head over there, there's chat. Just log in, and there's a lot of good folks in chat. You can join us there. If you're watching us on YouTube and you're somewhere else than the AverageGuy.tv live, head over there, the AverageGuy.tv live. We have a player there, and if you're on YouTube, the chat is just right above you. So join us for chat. We got a bunch out there this evening, and chatters, we are glad that you are with us as well. Then I've been working real hard to get the video improved. Hopefully you notice it both on the live stream and on the YouTube. All right, we got a busy show tonight. Let me go through the cast real quick, and then we'll dive into the other show about laptops. Of course, all the way to the left, and the host with me every single week, Christian Johnson. Christian, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Jim. Out of classes and out of school, so that is great. And looking forward to doing some tech in the month of May.
Yeah, you've got a busy time coming up, and you'll be heading off for NASA for the summer and then off to college in the fall, right? I mean, that's all lined up and ready to go, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I'm sure we're going to get a chance to talk about NASA more in the coming weeks as you get that done. Maybe do a whole show around that. So congratulations on graduation. I know the ceremony hasn't happened yet, but that's a big deal for you, and you're done with school, so congrats with that.
Thank you.
And then over to my right, John Stutsman. John, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Great. Good to have you on the show. Did I catch you in the middle of a bite?
I was in the process of posting a tweet
okay.
when I was on the Average Guy TV.
Oh, good. Well, keep posting.
Caught me in midstream, so I was, I was surprised. I was expecting you to go all the way over to Paul.
Oh, so, no. Good. Yeah, in fact, if you're listening to the show, it's always good. Let folks know you're listening out here at the AverageGuy.tv/live. John, thanks for joining us. And next to him, Kevin Schoonover. Of course, Kevin, we know Kevin, you did a bunch of live coverage with us during CES and joins us from time to time. Kevin, how are you?
I'm very good.
And I want to say thanks for sending that memory out. If you've been following us over at the Facebook page, facebook.com/group/theaverageguy, you know that I got a big beefy server. Well, it's really a Precision workstation, but I'm going to use it as a server. And Kevin, why did you just have memory laying around? I mean, how does that work?
We decommissioned some equipment at work and ended up with extra memory laying around, and we've been eating our own dog food of trying to upgrade things in labs, and even though old servers still run ESX5 fine, we're trying to do some more consolidation. So we just had kind of a pile of the old fully buffered stuff laying around, and there you go.
Well, that's awesome, because when I bought the laptop, or when I bought the workstation from work, Gallup sold those to their employees for $25. They all said, "Oh yeah, we'll put 4 gig in it, but that's all you're going to be able to get. That memory's super expensive to get anywhere else, and you're never going to find it." And so I get home, and that night Kevin's like, "Oh yeah, I got a bunch laying around. I'll just send it to you." So Kevin, thanks for the memory. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And then all the way to the right, and of course Paul has been on the show many times before, and a guy who goes back with a lot of equipment, a lot of ways, and most excited because he's a road warrior. Paul Braren. Paul, how are you?
I'm great, Jim. It's good to be here again tonight, and looking forward to an exciting May. I've got a couple of, if anyone lives near Boston, I'll be presenting twice this month, actually.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, my home lab and virtualization in VMware and Hyper-V. So, yeah, coming up May 14th right here in Hartford, Connecticut area. Anyone who lives near me, come visit my site, tinkertry.com. It's all listed right there. And then finally, Security B-Sides Boston, a Saturday coming up at the Microsoft Nerd Center in Cambridge, Mass. I'll be there. So come and join me. I'd love to meet some folks. If anyone lives anywhere near me, that'd be great.
All right, awesome. Yeah, that's how folks get a hold of you. Sorry, the video wasn't switching, so I apologize, chat. Thanks for letting me know. That's why I need a producer. But anyways, yeah, Paul, that sounds cool. You got some stuff coming up, and if you're in the area, say your site again. Where could I find it? Where's the one place I could go to get all that information?
Yep, just tinkertry.com. And right there on the main page, you'll see super guides and podcasts. That's basically what I'll be talking about today.
Awesome, very cool. I wish I lived closer. I'd come out and see it. Of course, we are all going to get together on September. Is that 21st? I hope I'm getting that date right.
21st.
September 21st.
Saturday 21st.
Indianapolis, Indiana, for the third annual, I guess we'll call it, third annual Home Server Show Average Guy Meetup. Dave McCabe and I will be sponsoring that, and all that is up and running. I'll leave a link in the show notes. Most of you guys listen to the Home Server Show anyways, and so you're well aware of it. But I'll just mention that out here. There'll be a link to that to get signed up. We already got 11, and we haven't even planned any. We don't even know where we're going to meet. we don't have anything set in stone yet. But you might want to get that on your calendar. September 21st out in Indianapolis, and if you're anywhere within 10 hours drive, you have to come. It's just a requirement, because that's what I drive to get there. So we'd like to see you there September 21st. And Sarah's probably learning about that for the first time. She's upstairs listening to the show. I don't think I mentioned to her that the Home Server Show meetup.
Maybe she'll want to come with you.
Ooh, that'd be a good idea. Yeah, I'll have to figure out what to do with the kids that weekend. They'll party if we leave. So, well, let's dive right into laptops. Kevin, I want to start with you, and I know you've got a ton of notes here. But why don't you tell me a little bit about what you're currently using, maybe a little bit of history of what you've used in the past, and let's just work through your notes.
Sure. So, and I guess from a discussion, I was thinking work and home, so I'll probably kind of talk about both. I don't have a lot of control with the IT department at work, but I do have some input there. My whole thing with mobile devices, and a few years ago, tonight I'm working from my desktop computer, but a few years ago I had really gotten off a desktop, had gone 100% with laptop, and to me it's understanding your use case, understanding what works for you, and understanding how best to get your compute environment up and going. So lots of choices out there. One of the things I've seemed to have done for several family members and friends is the much maligned and much hated 17-inch desktop replacement. And I think, Jim, you mentioned on last week's show, that is not a laptop for somebody who wants to travel. And I travel a lot for work. I couldn't imagine traveling with that. But when my wife wanted a computer, that just made sense. And the idea of having it replace her desktop, be something she could put on the kitchen table and do. She has to do Citrix into the county that she's working for right now for remote access, and it just ends up being a great product for her. For a lot of folks, it's probably too large, too cumbersome. The other thing I find with that desktop replacement kind of market is I have a friend who's a photographer and a friend who does architecture work, and I stumbled onto a few years ago that several of those bigger 17-inch laptops, they actually have spots for 2 disk drives. So you can put a SSD in there for performance, put a large drive in, load them up with memory. They got good-sized graphic cards, and they tend to work out well from that point of view.
So, Kevin, when you're saying laptop replacement, I mean, what you're saying is, so you're purchasing these 17-inch laptops knowing they're really not going to go anywhere, right? For the most part, they're going to sit on a desk. You might even attach a second or a third monitor to them. For dual screen use, or plug them into a docking station of some kind. But really, it's going to sit stationary most of the time, right?
Absolutely, and that most of the mobility of it is actually moving around the house more than moving around anywhere else.
Sure, yeah. Because I mentioned last week I'd gotten this big 17-inch Core i7 laptop, and I thought it'd be really cool. But I move around so much at work. I was picking that thing up. I never shut the lid. I carried around like a waiter with food, and it just gets heavy. after a while. You're just kind of like, oh, geez, this thing was a lot heavier than that little excuse me, like a 14-inch screen to begin with, 14, 15. That thing was just super light. So, okay, so just leave it there. And like I said, I've seen this too on some of those bigger ones. Second spot for another hard drive, which is really cool.
Yep. And for the friend who does the architecture stuff, the drafting, and the photo photographer, works out great. They take it with them, when they're going out to see clients. It's just like carrying their desktop right with them, and they really don't take a performance hit either. From a personal basis, from my point of view, I've kind of gone back to a desktop, and my mobility ends up being my Surface RT. It's a consumption device. I really don't do a lot of creation on it, although this week I have, because my work laptop has died, and it's somewhat amazing what you can actually get done with a Surface RT. Back to that use case thing from a work point of view, lots of engineers on my team, and the one consistent factor with all the guys is processing performance. They run VMware Workstation on there. They do a lot of demonstration activity, so they got a lot of VMs queued up on their machines. So much, high memories we can get in them, 8 to 16 gig and i7 processors. But the arguing factor amongst the guys is back to that screen size. And, initially we had to be in like a 15-inch screen to get the performance and get the memory capacity. And now from Dell and from HP, and I believe from Lenovo as well, we're able to get that in a 12 or 13-inch as well. So we're kind of making that shift. From a work point of view, I'm all about getting my travel as lightweight as possible. Next week when I get back from my conference, I should have a new Dell Ultrabook for my main work computer, and I've already done the calculations on it. My old Lenovo T400 weight-wise will be the same as this new Dell and my Surface RT. So I'll basically travel with both devices. I'm trying to keep things, personal stuff on my personal device, work stuff on my work device, try to keep the two separate, but I want to keep the load down, and things are looking good from that point of view.
Kevin, aren't we really getting to the spot, though, where, okay, so my example I just said a minute ago, 17-inch Dell, Core i7, probably from 2 years ago, pretty big beast. We're starting to see some pretty thin, pretty light, kind of plastic, but the heat's come down, the processors have gotten cooler, they've gotten more efficient, batteries have gotten better. Can't we see some 17-inch that are really thin and very light?
Oh, I totally other topic area, but think about the new XPS 18 from Dell. It's an all-in-one, but really it's a tablet, and that thing is outrageously light. So, yeah, I think you're going to start to see a market for 17-inch, especially with some of these magnesium alloy frames that they're able to put in them now, be extremely thin and extremely light. And with Haswell coming on, the processing performance, you're not going to need as big of fans. Cooling's not going to be as heavy. So yeah, from a technology point of view, I think we can keep pumping up into those workstation-like laptops and actually get the weight out of them. It'll be interesting to see if the market drives and helps demand that.
Now, you guys can jump in on this if you want, but in chat they're saying, like Lopta's saying, wouldn't a 17-inch be, you think about that, 17, 18 inches thin tablet style, isn't that just by nature that screen kind of flimsy? I mean, wouldn't you expect some issues with it?
The thing I'm noticing from it's the way they build the frames now and the materials they have to build the frames out of. I haven't had a chance to play with the new Dell yet, but I think that'll be kind of telling. And every review I've read about that is it's very strong, well built. Everybody comments on the build quality. So and I think they're doing a lot to take care of those issues. But yeah, 17-inch panel is a pretty good sized panel to have flapping on top of a laptop in a thin case.
Yeah, and Canadian Geek in chat also says with some of the carbon fiber units they're building, it's just adding some strength to it. So that's still a lot of glass to break.
That it certainly is. So, some of the other things I guess I've looked at, those are kind of examples of just my consultative aspects. But I think the average user has to, we seem to be in the whole Windows 8 thing has a lot of the media responding negatively that, there's fragmentation and there's all this stuff, and to me it's great because it's a lot of choices, and I think you just got to get out and play with some of these devices. I always look at what are you going to do with the thing. Grab a piece of paper and write down why you want a mobile device. What are you going to do with it? Is it mainly consumption? Is it mainly creation? Is it a bit of both? Are you a road warrior? Do you want something really lightweight and very functional? You guys had a great session last week about Chromebook, and I agreed with what you were talking about. Is when Chromebook first came out, I was like, oh God, just what you need is a stupid netbook. Netbooks were okay, and now we're going to have this Chromebook device. And the more you look at the use case for it, those are great. And Nathaniel's points about schools and Chromebooks, phenomenally good stuff. You look at the hybrids now, what's going to win out? The flips like the yogas, the twists like the Revolve from HP and the twist from Lenovo, the splits. There's lots of choices from that point of view, and then you kind of come down to the whole thing about touch around the Windows 8 tablets, or not tablets but laptops themselves. Is it really important to have touch on the screen? This week, with using my Surface from a work point of view, I picked up one of the Logitech T650 trackpads, and pretty impressed with that. That really kind of makes the Windows 8 desktop experience when you're working off from two monitors. I'm extending the desktop to my bigger monitor, and that T65 or T650 seems to make that world kind of come together as well. So that's worked out real well.
Yeah, you talked about the Chromebooks. If you're just listening to this show for the first time, go out to theaverageguy.tv/114. I'm sorry, HT for Home Tech, HT114. And Nathaniel does a nice job of talking through the Chromebook issue. And Kevin, to your point, in schools, those seem to be just dynamite. I mean, he was talking about the battery life all day. You can just plug them in and set them up. Almost to the point where at the end of the show, Christian was trying to talk me into giving away a Chromebook as one of the things we should give away.
I thought he had.
He might have. Well, and you'd also, Kevin, mentioned the yoga. Paul, I know you've got a yoga in your house, right, at this point?
I do, and another one in the extended family as well.
Okay,
Yep.
so we'll talk about that here when we come up to your turn. And I know Mike Howard has one too that we're going to talk about in 2 weeks. So no show next week, but in 2 weeks we're going to talk about that, and that is coming that way. So that yoga seems to be one that seems to maybe be catching on a little bit. So
it is, and I'm definitely kind of throw myself in the HP fanboy category, but I have to admit that the Lenovo's really leading this charge, where a lot of the other OEMs have kind of, I don't want to say begrudgingly, they've dragged their feet a little bit around some of the new generation laptops and the Windows 8 products, and Lenovo has just jumped in. You guys talked about Helix last week. That's a phenomenal bit of engineering, and I think at the end of the day, the interesting, people keep batting around that sales are down on desktop PCs. Well, that was happening before Windows 8. The interesting thing when IDC and Gartner throw out these numbers now is average selling prices of new laptop purchases are up, because people are buying better, nicer. People aren't just running out and buying the $300 15-inch Celeron-based laptop. They're going out and buying something with a touch screen, with more performance, with maybe a flip or a twist screen to it, and the average selling prices are pumping back up into the $500 to $700 range. So people are buying, and I think as people I just have this feeling that when Blue comes out, and I hate to say fixes some issues, but resolves some issues with Windows 8 that maybe users have had an issue with. And we hit into the next generation processors of Haswell and Bay Trail. I think that's going to be, right now we're in this transitional phase, and the next set that comes out is going to really bring a lot of this stuff together.
You mentioned in here, Will, Windows Blue or Service Pack 1, whatever we want to call that for Windows 8, Windows 8.1, whatever they're going to call it. You've been using this. Do you have high hopes for it as far as it kind of fixing some of the issues that Windows 8 created?
I've probably been thinking about it mostly from a workplace point of view. And Windows 8, the only thing that troubles me a bit today about Windows 8 is multi-monitor support, and that's more of a tech enthusiast and kind of more of a work environment. Sometimes that comes into play when you throw a device into a docking station, how well it either extends or duplicates. And from everything I've heard from folks who've dug in pretty heavily with Blue, Blue seems to resolve issues around multi-monitor support. And it seems like if I rattle through a list of concerns I might have about recommending Windows 8 to a novice or an average user, Blue seems to resolve most of those in my mind.
Okay, yeah.
Kevin, can I ask you a quick question about that?
Yeah.
And those stories about Blue and what it fixes, are they specifically talking about Metro or the modern UI, forgetting what monitor was on when you went to sleep? In other words, you have multiple monitors, you close the lid, come back the next morning, and you've got Metro UI in the wrong desktop, and now you got to click and fix it. Is that specifically one of the bugs you heard?
That's one of the bugs. When I was doing a little more playing with multi-monitor, I experienced that, and from what I'm hearing from folks who've tested pretty heavily with Blue with three, I know at least 3, maybe 4 monitors, that was one of the things they found is things you could leave things pinned down much better on the monitor choices.
Nice. Okay, thank you.
Lapta also says that one of its clients bought a Windows 8 laptop. Showstopper was that the printing was having trouble because there were no Windows 8 drivers for that particular device. I haven't heard that before. Any of you guys experience printing issues with Windows 8 before?
So all my
John.
devices go to the printer,
So yours work, John.
and mine are all Windows 8.
Okay. And what's your printer, though?
It's an HP. It's an HP 6000 wireless.
Fairly new?
It's like 2 years old.
Okay.
I can get into it remotely from my laptop and any of my machines, actually. And any of my servers, VMs, I can get into it. So I don't have any problem.
Yeah, I haven't either. But again, I use a wireless HP 7410, which is even older. It just finds the drivers and installs. And although honestly, I don't do a lot of printing anymore. I really try not to. I'm trying to get away from that. So Lapta also mentions the user experience. It's a user who didn't really like Windows 8. I don't blame him.
I set up a Windows 8 machine for my sister, and I used a printer that my brother had that he could never get to work. So it was like 6 years old, and I set it up and got it. I didn't know that I guess that there was that much of a problem. I went to the HP website, pulled down the drivers, and the thing worked. And that particular printer, I can't recall the name of it offhand, but it's been out of production for quite a few years now. But there were drivers, pulled them down, loaded it up, and the thing worked. So I
think it's been spotty, though.
I think it's isolated. I never thought of it as a real problem.
Yeah, Paul, what are you showing us there?
I was just showing a multiple monitor setup.
Okay. Well, let me.
That was actually Windows 7. That photo's about a year old. I've changed things a little, but yeah, I've got 2560 by 1440 in the middle, and that was a bit of a challenge on a laptop. And then the left and right side, currently I've got two 22-inch 1080p 1920 by 1080 screens. The proportions and everything works out great. So I no longer
you're
have
using
the vertical.
Windows 7 though, right?
Well, no, that picture's old. I'm on Windows 8 for a good 8 months now.
Okay.
That picture's about a year old. So yeah.
So you're driving that same setup with Windows 8 right now?
Yeah, if you've clicked on that picture showing it, you'll see there's actually a fourth monitor that was an iPad I was borrowing. So an iPad could have been used as a display link fourth monitor seamlessly and just drag stuff out of the desktop. It was pretty cool. But DisplayLink has since dropped support for that. So I'm back to 3 screens.
But I would agree that Windows 8 and multi-monitors is still kind of rough. You know,
A little bit.
it's kind of messy. I don't like it. I love Windows 8, and we've hashed this out. So I'm gonna actually end this Windows 8 conversation right here, because we've talked about this ad nauseum. But with 8.1, I think it will be interesting to see what improvements come with it. So I think that with some new hardware that's coming, Kevin, I think that's one of the things you're saying. I think with some of the new hardware we're starting to see, I think we may get a little bit better user experience going forward with it.
I put up a screen share of my 3 monitors, and that's running Windows 8.
Okay. And John, your experience on multi-monitor?
I love it.
Oh, okay.
The only difference on those 3 monitors, the one on the right, I've now turned it because it's a Samsung 21.3T, and it's a higher resolution monitor. And by turning it, it makes a great document monitor. So
Sure.
I have the documents on it, and also in the center is my wallpaper. That's my wife and I and our grandson several months ago. So,
nice.
But anyway, that's what I've been using, and Windows 8, I think it's great. And the only thing I think that would be a benefit in my mind is if there was a way for Windows 8 Enterprise, if an entity can set it up so that you could go directly to desktop for the enterprise customers. And I think that should be a minor fix.
Yeah, I think that's coming one way or another. I think that is coming. Let me bring this back around to the laptop, Kevin. I want to start it with you in the sense of, and this is for all 3 of you at this point, or all 4 of you with Christian on the side. Docking stations. We don't talk a lot about docking stations. I don't hear anybody talk about them very often. I carry the laptop. I don't have a docking station at work. I just plug my laptop in. I have a little stand, and I plug the second monitor into the side of it. But I know there are docking stations out there. Are they worth having? Is it something, Kevin? Let me start with you. Do you use an external docking station for a laptop and blow it out with some monitors, or how? What's your preference?
Used to be, that's kind of the way we went. And my company's IT department is still very docking station driven. They just feel that's a better user experience. But I think the thing we're finding is docking stations are rather expensive. The one nice thing for like the engineers on my team, the HP docking stations give them the ability to run 2 monitors off the dock and a 3rd monitor straight off the laptop. So there are some nicer add-ons that way. But with the advent of USB 3, now, this wouldn't support gaming, but Targus and Pluggable and some of these guys are building these USB 3 based docking stations that have a couple of video chips in them. So you get USB connected. So with one connection, you can actually drive a couple of monitors off that. Definitely, it's not going to be outrageously high resolution, and it's not going to be gaming quality video. But for a business case, I think that's becoming more of the trend. Is if I can just plug a USB 3 cable into the side of my laptop and add a couple of monitors to it and control all that's a pretty cool thing.
Because that'd make a really nice. You talk about the desktop replacement, and if you got the nice laptop and then you got the monitors coming off of it.
Yep.
We purchased some docking stations at work. I think they're between $65 and $99, let's say. So for about $100, you could blow it out to 2 monitors plus the 3rd one being the laptop. So that created kind of a nice environment. So not too terribly expensive. Paul, you're showing something there. Let me kick over to you. What are you showing?
Yeah, I was just listening to the Surface Geeks podcast, and they're talking about docking stations, and what you can do over USB 3.0 is remarkable. So last June, I received my 2-month back order of this Lenovo ThinkPad USB 3.0 dock. Don't let the name fool you. It says Lenovo brand, fine, but it'll work with any old PC, desktop, or laptop. Even works with Mac and Linux. I tested it on Windows 7 and Windows 8. Works great. It's about $150 on Amazon, and I wrote up a super guide here. So if you look at tinkertry.com/USB 3 dock super guide, or in this video, you'll see it. There's a close-up picture I took of the back. You're looking at 2 DVI-D ports. Why is that interesting? Well, you can crank them all the way up to 2048 by 1152. So if you look at my screen here, this is how my desk is arranged now. Giant screen in the middle, 27-inch, 2560 by 1440, and then 2 screens flanking. Just one of the monitors is run by the stock. So USB 3.0 is not doing much. I've actually tried it on USB 2.0, and it can handle it quite well. Like Kevin said, I'm not gaming, but for scrolling through Excel, through watching HD video, no stuttering, no tearing, no visual artifacts. It works beautifully, and here's how it's wired. So if you just, I'll leave that picture there for a moment, Jim. And up at the upper left corner is the dock. It's basically an ugly bunch of wires sticking out the back of it. It's a small little hub, if you want to think of it that way. It's tiny. And I do have a traditional docking station you're seeing in that picture. Why? Because I needed that display port cable for the full 2560 by 1440. That's a rare resolution for a laptop to support. So forget 27-inch. The average 24-inch rig, like 3 of them, none of this is a problem at all with any laptop that's made in the last 2 years. Wow. That's the take-home message. I don't want to make this more complicated than it needs to be with a high-res monitor in the middle.
Wow.
But yeah, there it is. That's $150. Yes, it's more expensive than some other brands, but it has 2 outputs, so that gives you more flexibility for future growth or whatever you might do. In that picture you see, I actually don't sit near my laptop. I don't want the noise and the heat. That's further away from me. My 3 monitors are in front of me. This thing's humming along behind me 7 feet away. So there you have it.
Nice.
In this guide, too, I have a bit of an unboxing and a going over of the install experience, but on Windows 8, it's gotten pretty darn easy. So yeah, glad you brought up docking stations.
Yeah,
they
thoughts,
really help
guys?
for productivity.
Any other thoughts? Christian, for you going into a dorm room, any thoughts of a docking station to drive your future laptop? Use it that way.
Yeah, the Lenovo ThinkPad Helix has a really nice docking station that's USB 3 that supports 2 external monitors, so that would be pretty.
So you're keeping your eye out for that, are you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, interesting. Any other thoughts on docking stations? We just don't talk about them very often, but they are certainly out there.
I'll mention
yeah, go
the
ahead.
corporate world with cutbacks and expenses. I can't even expense docking stations anymore. So frankly, there's a great deal of appeal to being able to keep this. Just buy it myself and keep it with whatever brand I hook up to it. So you can imagine a shared guest cube with a giant monitor, say. You just plug your laptop USB 3 into this and you borrow it. It's not a big deal, right? Rather than a proprietary docking station, it's just one USB 3.0 connection. That's it.
Yeah, right on.
So that's
Very
definitely
cool.
pretty cool, yeah.
All right, Kevin, you're still on the docket here. Anything else you want to cover?
Kind of bouncing all over the place here,
Yeah.
but when I'm helping friends with laptops, one of the things that I do like from Dell, Lenovo, HP is, and I think some folks ignore or get concerned about the number of updates coming through. Windows does its updates, and HP, I feel, has a pretty good tool that updates their own software. And one of the things I've noticed is, it'll prompt you about BIOS upgrades, and I always tell people, update the BIOS in your laptop early and often. And the reasoning is a lot of the thermal characteristics and a lot of the fan control and a lot of other things about a laptop is controlled by the BIOS. So if they find, especially if you just bought a brand new model, you'll tend to find that if they've run into some thermal issues with it, and this happened on my sister-in-law's laptop, is it would get a little bit unstable if she had it on her lap where the air cooling probably wasn't as good as it should be. Prompted to do a BIOS update, and the thing she noticed is it runs cooler now, it's a little louder, and the fans are running more often. So they changed some of the thermal characteristics that way. So I always tell people, keep them clean. You should really vacuum out the air ducts on them to keep the dust out of them. But the BIOS one is one. I think a lot of folks have this feeling about BIOSes is if it's not broken, I shouldn't update the BIOS. And on laptops, I just find it important to, if the vendor's got a new version of the BIOS out, go ahead and update it.
Christian, how much laptop action do you guys see over there at bios-mods.com? Is
Oh
it
yeah.
mostly, a lot of stuff there?
Yeah, we get guys who use the whitelist mods a lot when they want to put in wireless cards that are being whitelisted by the manufacturer. So we take those out, and there's also a fair amount of most of the laptops now are running either the new Phoenix platform, whether it be UEFI or not, or the Inside BIOS platform, and we modify both of those to do option unlocks for. Whether it's overclocking or underclocking or whatever, there's a fair amount of laptop overclocks, so or modifications rather.
Okay, yeah, and we haven't talked. Just one sec, Paul. We haven't talked about BIOS-mods in a while, but sort of that site's humming along, and if folks if they've got laptops and they want to be a little adventurous, this is probably not average guy stuff, but if they want to be a little adventurous, they can head over there. A pretty big community going on around there, and you can get some things if the hardware is not supported in the BIOS. Oftentimes, if they can make it work, those guys over there can get that working for you, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, very cool. Paul?
Yeah, I was just going to add, well, before I met Christian and heard of him on this podcast, yeah, mods really come in handy for some out-of-warranty stuff. So you got a laptop. It's 7, 8 years old. You don't want a USB dongle sticking out the side for Wi-Fi. You can get a $30 eBay card. It's not normally going to work in that laptop unless you tweak the BIOS. It's that simple. No one's talking about warranty. This is ancient junk that's going to sit on a shelf and do nothing, perhaps. It can be really useful. And I'll leave it at that. So I've heard.
Yeah,
But, yeah.
very
No,
cool.
no big deal.
You're very careful to say out of warranty, right? But
Exactly.
Kevin, to your point, updating your BIOS does not take it out of warranty, right? I mean, it's
Right. Yeah.
Oftentimes the manufacturer supports it. That's what they're doing, right?
And I noticed with a lot of the Dell and HP are probably the ones I have the most experience with. Their built-in software tool, as long as you leave it active, it'll prompt you to do updates, and BIOS updates have gotten so easy now. You know, they do them in flight. You know, you used to have to do them during the boot cycle or sometime other than normal runtime, and now they're just easy to do and probably more important to do them than say on a desktop.
Christian, has modifying the BIOS has gotten easier as we've gotten further on with more advanced hardware, or is it getting more difficult for you guys to modify the BIOSes?
Really, everything up until, the real kind of progression was Award and AMI was the big area, and people struggled with the Phoenix and Inside platforms for a bit. Now those are pretty well understood and are modifiable. And now, obviously, the big problem we start running into is these UEFI BIOSes have really complex. Some of them have encryption. Some of them have these GUID modules that when you actually, even if you can decompress and unencrypt them, when you break them down into the 200 plus subbins they are. I mean, your traditional non-UEFI BIOS, you're maybe dealing with anywhere from 20 to 60 like sub-ROMs that make up the BIOS image that you flash to your machine. But now it's just spiraling out of control with UEFI, where it's really hard to tell what ROM is responsible for what in the UEFI platform. So I'd say we're pretty solid up until UEFI, and then it's hit or miss from there.
Gets a little more complicated.
Yeah, I mean, there are some tools that we have that can do UEFI and make heads and tails of it, but to be doing some of the manual customizations that we do with the other stuff is pretty tricky.
And I assume UEFI has made its way into the laptop realm as well. That's not just a desktop motherboard problem, right? We still have the same problem with laptops. I shouldn't say problem, right? I mean, it increases some functionality. UEFI increases some functionality.
Yes.
But it also comes with some additional problems for you guys along modification rooms. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin, one last thing maybe?
Yeah, actually, out in chat, they were somebody was asking about the NVX2 from HP. I'm a fan. I've probably said it 4 or 5 times already. I'm kind of an HP fan. For the person out in chat was asking about that, I just was playing with one today. Office Depot seems to have them in stock. The X2 is an 11.6 screen, 1366 by 768. It's a split, so it looks like a small clamshell. The top pops off and acts as a tablet. All reviews are real positive on it. I think it first came out in the $700 type of price range. Most people have it on sale for $650 or $599. Here about a month or so ago, Staples was letting people combine $100 off coupon, so it got down into the $550 kind of range. The drawbacks, or the apparent drawbacks, is it's an Atom-based processor, so it gets beat up a little bit for only having 2 gig of memory and being an Atom. But I encourage you to go buy an Office Depot, or I think Staples carries them as well. And if you play with it for a while, I'm pretty impressed with how well Windows 8 runs on 2 gig of memory and an Atom processor. If you're doing light compute and you want that experience of having a clamshell type device and a tablet freestanding, I think it's a pretty nice option. If I'm not mistaken, it also has active digitizer on it, so if you want to do pen entry, it tends to work very nice for that as well. So, like with any of these things, spend some time in the store, really work through them and look them over. But the X2 seems to be quite a value.
Maybe not a bad piece of equipment for an entry into this touchscreen, right? It sounds like it's got a lot of takes advantage of a lot of touchscreen features. So something to look at for sure.
Yep.
Okay, Paul, let's cut over to you. I know you've stacked up you've racked them and stacked them behind you, and you're going to cover just a smidge of history, but what do you got for us?
Yeah, Kevin, what he's talking about was just a great segue, and he's talking about 17-inch laptops, right? So if we talk about today in high horsepower, what I need for my job, it can mean a brick like this. I mean, the thing is pretty much brick size. This is a Lenovo W520 laptop with 3 drive bays. We'll talk about that. And yeah, there's my phone. It's pretty large. Now, that's 1.5 pounds right there. And the laptop itself is still, I think, almost 6 pounds. But even sillier was that I flew around all over the country from 2008 to 2011 with a W700. That was a 17-inch behemoth. The thing is 1.5 inches thick. I didn't have the pop-out screen on the side, which was an additional $700 and came out months later. But here's the point. Why did I fly around with that? Few key points. One, I was not using it on an airplane tray. I was using it for 10, 15 hours in a hotel room at night, and another 8 hours at a customer site with someone looking over my shoulder that needed a decent-sized screen. So you can start to see it make sense. The next piece with a road warrior machine, as crazy as a huge laptop might seem, those impromptu sessions where you have one other person looking at your screen, it really helps. But also, you're projecting and you're teaching a room full of 10 people something on Linux, for instance, using a virtual machine. You need performance. And having dual drive bays gave me a RAID 0, double the read-write speed for my D drive, my data drive where my VMs lived. So you start to realize way before the days of SSD back in 2009, this is the kind of horsepower I needed for the work I was doing, consulting on the road, doing virtualization work, VMware, Windows 2008 R2 deployments, that sort of thing. You really need the horsepower, you need the memory. And the size, the fact that it's 1.5 inches thick and 9 pounds, just didn't matter. It's all in a wheeled cart that I wheeled through the airport with me. This thing has been everywhere, and I don't carry the weight of it. I'm just wheeling through the airport. Not a big deal.
Paul, did you find though, but most places you go, if you tried to plug into a projector, that you can, projectors still don't have great resolution in a lot of places that you go to. Yep. You get there and you try and show something, and it's just crap because.
Yeah, it's 102.4.768.
Yeah.
Yep. And my laptop can do 1920 by 1080. So you'd end up actually 1920 by 1200, I think, on that one. So people would end up. If it was just 2 or 3 people, they just end up looking right at my screen to teach something. And everyone could read, the command line commands I was typing, whatever. But you're right, it was always a challenge on a projector to try to do actual coding or editing a batch file or firmware deployment automation routines or this kind of stuff I was working on. But either way, having a 4 gig memory 32-bit machine made no sense. I was on Vista when it was beta. I was running it with the maxed DIMMs, and I was running 64-bit version just so I could use VMware Workstation and actually have some horsepower, because I had no internet in many of those locations. I had to have all the grunt with me. This is just my story. It only made sense for me. I'm not saying it makes any sense for others.
I see that a lot.
Each perspective is different. Yeah.
In the Oracle world that I live in, I see that a lot. The sales guys come in with these big beefy machines, and you're right. Yeah. They have to have VMs running on them and power, and so that's where that kind of footprint makes sense.
Now, an alternative perspective. Let's go back to 1998 for a second. Anyone remember this little guy? See what happened there?
I love the way the keyboard just snapped out on you.
So, what's that called? It's called the Lenovo Butterfly, right? It was pretty ingenious keyboard. Watch. There you go. See? So, this thing actually is, I don't know, 14 years, and it still boots. So that's kind of fun.
What's it boot to?
You'll see momentarily.
Okay.
My point of showing this is we've got the red nub in there, the ThinkPad track point. Dell and HP still put them there for the corporate user. You got people used to these things for 15 years. Acceleration in the field has stayed the same those whole 15 years. That's kind of remarkable. Why do I point that out? Because trackpads still really stink at a lot of laptops, and they're inconsistent, different sizes and different positions. So, yes, I'm not saying I'd woo anyone over or win them over on learning a track point at this point, because they're going away. But the point is, it's a good 15-year run. And, it's pretty interesting that Dell and HP would throw them on theirs too. Okay, it's complaining my battery's a little old, of course. And we've got corrosion on the side where the battery ate through the shell a little bit. But it works, and there's your version of Windows.
Oh, look at that, ME.
Yep. So kind of remarkable that the hard drive, which you can hear making noise, is working, 14 years later. So yes, rugged is my point. These things are old. I've got a pile of them, and ThinkPad T30s, that distinctive cutoff corner. Why am I showing you this? That's, mid-2000s, or actually early 2000s, because I've been spoiled by a 1400 by 1050 screen for a good decade. So it's really hard when I sit down and use someone's 1280 by 720 resolution netbook from 3 years ago. It makes me want to cry. I mean, this thing is 10 years old. I worked with developers in our software group back then. Developers, you need high-end stuff with decent screens. So now you kind of get a little sense of why I got excited last summer when for $450 I could buy a 27-inch 2560 by 1440 monitor. Finally. It's a long wait, but what a difference. So laptops and the docking station combined with them can be extremely productive in my office and not heat the whole room up. The whole shebang is run at about 200 watts. All 3 monitors, my light, my router, my gateway, my dock, my laptop, all for about 200 watts. Well worth it. That's 1/3 of what I was using with a single desk side Xeon from 4 years ago. So that's the story I wanted to tell. I used a lot of hardware, and that's just my own story. I've got about a dozen laptops in my extended family that I support, and that my Windows Server 2012 Essentials backs up daily. 2/3 of those machines are backing up over VPN nightly. And I tend to standardize in a particular model, so I have spare parts. When the warranty runs out, one breaks, I just move the keyboard off another one. Or the Wi-Fi module dies, move it from a dead one. I keep a boneyard of parts. So that's how I run my kind of home operations and try to keep my weekends
free from having to do tech support.
Correct. Having some spare parts and being able to back up and restore everything.
One of the notes that Kevin left in his notes, he said, sell your tech while it still has value. That pretty much goes against everything we're seeing there. Paul, you've held on to all your stuff. Is it kind of nostalgia, or I mean?
Yeah, no, this thing, a lot of them are dead. Yep. Kind of nostalgia. That one's just amazing that it still works. I mean, if you look even further back, you have a good giggle about the screen size in that puppy.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
You're looking back 15 years, like, before.
Just got stacked in a corner.
Right around when Christian was born here. That's what we're looking at. Okay? So, yep. A little museum of sorts, and that's 2 inches thick. They're early laptops.
Oh, good heavens.
So getting to focus on today, Jim, you asked.
Yeah.
Here's where things get interesting. How do you clone a Yoga? So think about that. It's got a UEFI BIOS. Boom, right there you got to go to Windows Server 2012 Essentials. 2011 doesn't do it. and it's a GPT partition. So all of a sudden you're looking at, you need new stuff. You need new techniques. It's a sealed case. You can't pull out the hard drive to clone it. And finally, it's Wi-Fi only. So when I got the Yoga last Christmas for my son, is in high school doing homework right now. Hopefully it'll show up here in a moment to show you. That thing was a challenge to clone, but I need to clone things. I've been cloning them since '98, way back in the early Ethernet days. Just say, like I said, saving weekends. Someone messes up their machine, I'm not going to mess around with all weekend. I'm just going to kick off a restore, come back when it's done, and hand it back to them from the day before when the backup was still good. So that mentality, I've been using home server since it came out, right? That was a huge blessing for me. To have deduped backups and just drop Ghost and Acronis and all that stuff, and just have one master backup server. But here's what I did. To get the Yoga to clone, took a few little bits and pieces. Item 1, you have only one USB port on there. So what are you going to do? One USB 3.0 port, and you want decent speed. Here's the key, a little StarTAC device. And my website, one of my if you go to tinkertry.com, click on Super Guides, you'll see my Zillas, my T-Zilla, my V-Zilla, my Y-Zilla. Those are my laptops. They just have my nicknames for them. And a series of articles that goes over a lot of this stuff, including my initial experiences with Lenovo. Here, let me show that. So Jim, here, I'll share out my desk quickly as I wrap this up. And it's got pictures and the exact parts. So I'm holding a StarTAC.com part from Newegg and Amazon, and it allowed me to clone this very thin Yoga. And there was a lot of problems doing that because, for one, you need driver support. So suddenly I'm facing, will Windows Server 2012 Essentials let me get a driver going for the restore media? And again, there's no CD, so now we got the next piece, a USB 3.0 memory stick that we also had to deal with. You put these two things together, and you've run out of ports. So I'm like, okay, another 20 bucks, I think, got me this USB 3.0 splitter. And now this is my traveling restore disaster recovery rig. We got my USB 3 boot media that really cranks right along. UEFI can boot off of this just fine. That's my Windows Server 2012 Essentials restore media. And then you've got my gigabit Ethernet coming off the other side of this Y adapter. Now when you plug this Y adapter into the Yoga, you've got a self-contained boot target. You tell the UEFI BIOS to boot from it, and you boot off the boot media in seconds. You're looking at the Windows Server 2012 Essentials Restore media. It finds the network adapter, and now you're gigabit restoring your solid-state drive.
Paul, hold that thing up lengthwise so
Yep.
we can see it all the way across. No, it's across the
Yeah,
screen.
yeah. Yep, there we go. So I went a little fast, but basically that's the key. Now I got to admit, all my other machines, before they're under the Christmas tree or whatever the scenario is, or they're my dad's or whoever's in the family, I back them up and I do a test restore first. Not so much with the Yoga. I could only do a test restore to a virtual machine that was GPT formatted with its hard drive and a UEFI BIOS. That was using ESXi 5.1, which Kevin knows about. So Kevin, my only way to rehearse it on a sealed laptop was to restore to a virtual machine that was very much like a Yoga. I wasn't going to go blowing away his hard drive just in case I nuked the partition or something went horribly wrong. But so far, Windows Server 2012 Essentials has never let me down. All the versions for the last 4 years, I've always had successful restores, whereas with Ghost and Acronis, 10-20% of the time it just dies in the middle for you mysterious reasons with corruption. And now you're toast. So there's my story. A pile of laptops supporting them. The key was being able to back them up and make sure before I hand them over to anyone in the family that I can back it up and restore it. So hopefully that helped, Jim. That's my perspective on laptop ownership.
No,
Trying to keep it simple.
That's a little more, and Kevin, I think I'm getting a little breathing from you. Careful there on your mic. I think that was you. If not, just everybody check their breathing. Everybody's like, am I still breathing? No, that's a great perspective, Paul, because that's a little more, that's kind of like power backup and restore and Windows Home Server stuff, and I'm just intrigued, that the components that you put together to make that work. You've got a couple different components to pull it all together. So nice work. Any questions on that, guys? You got anybody want to jump in there and ask a question?
I think it's excellent that Paul goes through and he's prepared ahead of time and made sure that he can do a restore on any device he has before he passes it out to family members.
That is great.
Yeah, part of that is just unlike yours, Jim, where your machines are super simple and cloud-based. A lot of these are legacy. They're a clone of their old machine that had 3 printers configured, Picasso with 10,000 photos, and a whole bunch of apps that they're just used to.
Right.
Just not cloud yet, and it's just they're very painful, thick clients.
Yeah.
So basically, just moving them from generation to generation. Since Windows Vista days, you can really pretty much boot on anything as long as it's HCI BIOS with in the hard drives partition that way. You're fine. Our device manager will find your parts, and you just move on, moving the hard drive from laptop to laptop. But those days are over. The laptops are getting sealed. You're not moving physical hard drives from a laptop to another anymore. And that does make it trickier when things croak. Like a Yoga, which you're going to be overnight mailing for repairs, right? You're probably not going to be pulling out the SSD yourself by heading over to Best Buy and getting some parts.
And those are sealed? I guess I didn't realize that. That's
well,
sealed
you
up.
Can break it open, although I don't. Yeah, you can open it, although I am under a 3-year full warranty period, including damage protection, so you kind of gives you pause, right?
Okay.
Normally, like right now, I have a laptop that's being serviced. I pull out everything, the hard drive, the giant battery from an old style laptop, and then they just do their factory service. Now, perfect timing. You've got this essentially sealed design with almost no screws.
Tell him thank you, by the way.
Thank you. And here's the Yoga. Obviously, the thinness is pretty incredible. 15 years should do a bit with the evolution of laptop size, right? But this is the fun part to show on a Yoga, right, is bending it backwards or breaking it, right? It looks horrible when you do that. I won't say it's been perfect experience, and this just a quick mention of a few things in the Yoga. For me to get used to it, well, first of all, you have no track point. Touch surface is good, though. Keyboard layout, pretty rough, because you got quite a bit of difference here with the inverted T, page up, page down. They made some major changes. To my dad, absolutely fine with that, although I'll point out a couple things, too. In the top row, you've got keys where a single tap of this key right here will just turn off Wi-Fi and put it in airplane mode. Not great. Windows 8 will say you've done that, but of course now you have a brick that can't get on the LAN until you fix it. A key right next to it blanks out the monitor. That's not so good. The laptop screen just goes off. You think you just broke your laptop or powered it on, off, even though it's on. So some of those usability things, the BIOS lets you tweak it, so you have to hit function before any of those keys work. It's like, okay, there, I just dad-proofed it. So that with a little bit of work, it works for 3 generations. My son and my dad both have these. It's gone extremely well. They're both fine with it. Rotation has been the biggest bug. A little bit goofy. Sometimes the desktop machine will auto-rotate, so I ended up just disabling it because my dad's using it as a laptop almost all the time, rarely as a tablet.
I just saw it switch on you there when you turned it.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's been pretty good. But a little strange that Lenovo's taken their sweet time to update the drivers. Usually when a laptop's new, and Christian knows this, the BIOS flash, like on Lenovo's, you'll get 2 or 3 that first year. Well, this thing hasn't had updates since October, the Yoga. And with a somewhat buggy pivot driver, that's a little bit weird, but I'm sure they'll fix it. And Kevin, you mentioned fan speed. There's already talk in the forums they'll be tweaking it. It makes a little bit of noise, maybe more than I would like, and it runs awfully cool. I'm kind of thinking the next BIOS flash on this one might lower the fan a little bit because it makes just a bit more noise than I would have expected. So there you go. That's a quick overview. I've got a full article about it. Again, if you go to tinkertry.com//Zilla, that's it. Hit enter, and you'll see all my different laptops and desktops kind of documented with some pictures.
Very cool. I think a great resource. A great resource to if you really want to dive in. And Paul, I know you've got a lot of detailed articles out there. You don't cover anything halfway. So if you're going to write about it, you're going all the way in. You're going to talk about everything. So some good resources out there. So if you haven't checked that out, if you've been listening to the show for a while and you haven't checked that out, you really do want to go out there and take a peek. tinkertry.com.
Any questions before I give it back to homework duty here? A little bit of lag in the screen you're seeing. So I think some newer laptop. Yep.
in a couple of weeks, I said we're gonna have Mike Howard back on. He's gonna have his yoga.
Good.
You might
Cover it all
want to either jump in on that, or because we're gonna spend a bunch of time talking about his yoga, so that might be a good time to circle back around and talk about that as well.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, you bet. John, we didn't think we left you out there. I know you probably approach laptops from a more average guy standpoint. Both Paul and Kevin are a little more technical and into their laptops. Am I correct in assuming that you're more of just the average guy user?
I think I'm pretty average compared to Paul and Kevin. Yes.
Talk a little bit about your usage.
Well, I put in the show notes one of my a link to a paper I wrote on my first upgrade of my laptop. But I came to laptops, personal laptops, pretty late in the game. I've always been a desktop man, but at work when I needed a laptop, I would just check one out, and I was never really that impressed with them because they were always several years old, and they were slow, and they were heavy. And then when my son Brian went to college, and he wanted a laptop instead of a desktop, so we got him a Dell, and he really enjoyed that. And after he got out of college, he started collecting some other devices, and also at work they gave him machines to work with too. But he had he had a net top, and I really liked the size of the net top. And it was
netbook
or a netbook. Yeah, I said net top.
Yeah, I get that. I'd say that too. So
yeah, so I really like the size, and I think the way I approached it is, I think, a good way for a lot of people to approach it. Go out and try different machines and see what you like. And I won't belabor the point because you had talked about it before. Kevin had made a good point, and you have made a good point. Those giant 17-inch machines with the 17-inch screens are just, those things are huge. And now when you go through TSA checkpoints, I mean, it's just impossible with all that hardware because you got to pull it all out. But I liked his machine. It was nice and small, portable, but I wanted something with a little bit more power. I didn't want a kind of dumbed down version of Windows 7 on it. So I looked around, and I did a lot of searching. I probably spent at least 6 to 9 months looking, and I finally settled onto an Acer 1810T. And it has I got links in the show notes, so I assume you'll be posting those in the notes afterwards. And the 1810T now is just if you go to Newegg, it's discontinued. It's not being carried by them anyway. But it was a nice machine. I won't go through all the specs, but it had 4 gig on stock. It had a 320 Western Digital Blue hard drive in it. What was nice, though, what I really liked, it had an 11.6-inch screen, and it was about 3 pounds. And for me, I mean, that was magic. Looking at some of the specs on it, and it had a Core Duo U7300. It's a 1.3 gigahertz CPU. It's 10 watts. If you look at the Passmark benchmark scores on it, it comes out at about the same score as an N40L that they have in the microservers. I didn't realize that it did, but for the things that I've been doing with it, it's been a very powerful machine. I run Office 2013 Pro on it, and I also have my SkyDrive and Dropbox on it, and I have a number of other miscellaneous programs that I run quite a bit. And it's a great machine. It's good for taking around, and it's light. It has, especially now with the SSDs that I put into it when I switched out the spinner drive, the hard drive, I got a little bit more battery life out of it. And so it's, it meets my needs. And I think I put in the show notes when I was telling you the only thing, if I could change on it, I'd like to put a Haswell in it.
Which
when that
means
came
what?
out.
What does that get for you?
The Haswell chips, the CPUs are going to be run a little bit cooler and have a little bit more power. And so that would give me more battery life. If everything else was the same and you just put a Haswell into here, I think I would have more runtime and it would be cooler. And I think I would be happy. Now, a touch screen on it, it's 11.6 inch screen. That's roughly the same as an iPad. If that was a touch screen, then I think the machine, this little laptop would be perfect. And I have it right here. Since we're having a show and tell, if I can.
Yeah, you're good. I've got you in focus, so we're seeing it now.
I don't know if you can. I'm trying to get it in front of the monitor here. You can see it's pretty thin, and it's this is the area right here where I changed out the hard drive and put in the SSDs. The paper that I wrote, I initially the first SSD I put into it was a Crucial, and which was a pretty nice SSD, but I wanted to use that in another build, so I put a Corsair GT into it, and that was a little bit faster reads and writes. And after that too, I loaded Windows 8 Pro onto it, the 64-bit version, and Windows Media Center, and then, like I said, I put Office 2013 on it, and I love it. Windows 8 on it works real well. The only thing, and I think it's a problem with a lot of laptops, or at least is with this, when you open it up, and you have a touchpad here at the bottom of the keyboard. And if you're typing on it, and if you accidentally hit that touchpad while you're typing, your cursor will jump over the screen. What I use...
It'll do wicked things. I hate that.
Yeah, and I thought about trying to just disable that touchpad, but there's times when I do like to use it.
You kind of need it. So.
And what I use, though, mostly is just a Microsoft Bluetooth mouse, and that works real well. I like
that a little 5000.
Yeah,
M5000. Yeah, those are nice. Those are kind of industry standard, I think, for Bluetooth.
Yeah, and I just picked up a simple case. I got it at Newegg, and pretty much just bought it on price. It's just a neoprene outside. Bought a case for the mouse. And in the front, it has like a zipper pocket. That's where I keep additional or extra USB sticks and hardware. And then I have like a small backpack that my wife got me. It's a Samsonite that I can. I have all my gear. I have I think I put in the show notes. When I travel, besides my power brick that I have. See, Paul was showing you all kinds of stuff. I got to show you my stuff too. Besides the power brick that I take with me, I have a single terabyte hard drive that I load a bunch of movies, and videos, and stuff on for just watching. When I'm out on the road, I can also keep data on that.
What's the brand?
It's a Western Digital. It's a Western Digital Elements, 1 terabyte. I don't know. Are you going to be copying some of the stuff from the show notes into?
Absolutely.
Into your notes?
Yep,
okay,
absolutely.
So that information's in there.
Okay, good.
And also another thing that I travel with that I've used is something that I used before. I got this thing, this blue thing. I don't know if you remember the
Blue
headphones.
Yeti.
Yeah, I'm being funny. we had talked about it before. I don't know if that was in the
No, that didn't make the
must have
show.
been pre-show.
No.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
pre-show work. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
You got to
had
get here
talked me into
early
getting
if you
to
want to hear the
Blue
good
Yeti,
talk.
yeah.
If you want to hear the good banter, you got to get to the show early.
But yeah, I take with me, and it has. Okay, can I get this on here? Yeah.
Just back it up a smidge. There you go.
There you go. It has my microphone and headphone set that I can attach, and I can make Google Hangout calls and Skype type calls. And then in my one of the things that I had liked about this laptop that I didn't mention before, and I had gotten the laptop. It's fairly old, actually. I had gotten it before I'd really gotten too much into HTPCs, and I liked the fact that the laptop had an HDMI port on it that I experimented before I got an HTPC, plugging in an HDMI cable into my laptop and then into our big screen TV, and we actually used that a lot of times to go onto the internet and do video streaming off the internet. Like a lot of times, like Big Ten, if they have games, if they'll have several games on TV, but then they'll have additional games that you can get on their network and stream them off. And I did that with the laptop. So in my travel case, I keep an HDMI cable so that if we're someplace and there's something that's being streamed, some sporting event or something, and we want to watch it, but it's not on the local channel, I can just plug the laptop into the TV and we can watch it. So, so it's a versatile little tool in that respect too.
Yeah, you brought up the bag, the Samsonite bag. We could do a whole show probably around the bags that we use to carry our stuff, because it's that. I mean, it's not just about having the gear. You got to have all the gear with you, right? And it's not about just the laptop. I mean, I think we've seen here, it's not about just the laptop, but I would imagine if we asked, yeah, right on. I imagine if I asked you guys, okay, list out, inventory out everything you carry with you when you travel, right? There's extra Ethernet cables, there's some flash drives, there's some video, there's some extra video cables, right? I mean,
Ethernet cables, yeah.
We keep, and ask me, don't ask me why I've got this cable sitting on my desk, but it's a, it's DVI to HDMI.
Jim, you bring up case sizes too. Those small regional jets, right? It could be a challenge. They all look at you like, you're going to bring that on? It's like, I'm kind of hoping to fit it in the overhead bin. So yeah, you want to make sure it fits in those. And it's going to be a challenge.
Christian, this is going to be a challenge for you. You're going to be more mobile than you've ever been before. Right. Have you thought about the bag? Do you have? Let me ask you. Do you've got with school? You were taking tech to school all the time. You got a special bag you carry all that stuff in? You're muted, Christian. Sorry.
Yeah, I have my school bag itself is a Targus bag, which was designed for tech, and that has been so durable. That has put up with more crap in the past 4 years than any backpack should ever have to deal with, and it looks almost brand new. In terms of like when I fly and stuff, I have some pretty big luggage cases I haul with me, so I'll pack that kind of stuff in there in the cases, and I'm not really big for carry-ons except for my netbook or something like that.
Do you carry on your violin when you're traveling with that?
Yeah, you have to, because the way it really works is that because of the instrument, it can get pretty messed up in the bottom of the airplane if it either is moving around or if there's a pressure change. So you don't want that thing flying around down there.
So you're carrying that on.
One thing I wanted to mention too that I saw in my bag is to carry a plug, a multiple outlet that you can.
From like Christmas lights?
No, well, it's green, but. You want to have something like this so that you can plug in and get all your devices into it. So I can plug in my laptop, we can plug in the power cable to charge the iPad, we can charge the iPod, and then we also have additional plugs for cell phones and everything. You know, so you can charge everything up in a motel room. So it's
we did a travel show when I came back from Germany. I'm trying to remember what show number that was, but if you go back a couple shows, I talked a little bit about the gear that you travel with. And and so
take a look too.
Tech gear. Paul, did you have something you want to show there?
Yeah, just briefly, it's not at Amazon or anywhere else, but Apple stores this Thule, or Thule, however you say it. Case works great with a Lenovo Yoga 13-inch. I couldn't find anyone online talking about what actually fits a mouse. So if you have a Bluetooth mouse and you're fond of traveling with those, where like I did the full crochet and bought 7 of these 8 years ago.
Oh, nice.
Because they break
Just 7?
eventually. Yep. Put it in here, well, the whole family. And yeah, you want a case that fits the power supply but doesn't jam on the laptop, so it's got a little bit of rigidity too. So this thing works really well for getting banged around to protect something like a thin Lenovo Yoga. Most of the time we don't use it, only for bigger trips. I had a quick question for John before you move on.
Sure.
Is that okay, Jim?
Yeah.
So John, for those mowing or driving as they're listening to you on the podcast, I just want to paint a picture. When you pull out that hard drive, that external hard drive, Kevin, Christian, did you guys notice that he had it meticulously wrapped in anti-static bag and bubble wrap, it looked like? He just glossed right over that, but he peeled it out gently. And then as he pulled it out and revealed it, he had a nice little, looked like maybe a dry erase sticker with careful labeling of what's on that hard drive. I just thought it was awesome. So thank you, John. If you were,
I
those little
would have
subtle
expected
things.
nothing less.
Exactly. Remember John of the bookmark fame, right? Of the little bags.
Well,
That's great.
I told you earlier at the beginning or the pre-show that I had printed out Jim Clark's book. I went and took it to a shop, and it's just printed out in black and white. But I got it tabbed now too, so it's. I'm hoping he comes to the meetup so I can get him to sign the front page. So
Very nice.
that'd be great.
Well, I'll have to make sure we do that. Kevin, did you have another question?
Just on the subject of bags, I think several of us are kind of the road warrior. I attend a lot of conferences, and every conference gives you some kind of a bag, and generally they're junk. At a conference late last year, and I put it in the show notes, we got a bag from a company called Timbuktu out of San Francisco, ballistic nylon, and one of the better bags I've gotten. Neat thing about their website is they have videos where a person is demonstrating the bag and showing the functionality. Probably one of the most functional bags I've got. They let you do some customization on them. Not outrageously priced, but not inexpensive either. So if you're looking for a bag to really fit your needs, I really recommend the Timbuktu products.
Okay, there you have it.
And thank you.
Yeah, there's. Go ahead, Paul.
Just last comment on that Thule case. Don't buy the 13-inch for a MacBook 13. It won't fit. You come up a quarter-inch short on the Lenovo 13. Buy the 15-inch one, and it fits fine. There you go.
And a little extra room's not always bad.
Apple Store only. Nowhere
Maybe
online.
that'll be the next show. Is it called accessories and bags? And we've all got them. I have a Swiss bag, a Swiss backpack bag that I use, and that thing I bought. I started at Omnium, so that would have been at Gallup 6 years now. So that would have been 7 or 8 years ago. I use it every day. Carry 2 laptops in it. And that thing just lasted. I think I paid $80 for it back at a Best Buy when I got issued my first laptop at a new job. I said, I really need to carry this thing to and from work. So spend the extra dollars on the bag. It matters, and buying a good one matters indeed. Christian, anything you want to interject in here real quick around laptops before any update from you that we need to hear from?
Lenovo Helix ThinkPad with Haswell would be sweet. That's all I have to say.
And you're waiting for that at this point, right? Yeah. So you can afford to wait. You're gonna do the fall. We talked about this at the end of the show last week. You're gonna hold off a little bit and use your sister's laptop when she's gone, and then and wait for that one to come out.
Yeah, my 2 addictions are the Helix ThinkPad and the Galaxy Samsung Note 2. I gotta have it.
Okay. Christian?
Well, and Haswell's coming out next month, so...
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yesterday, a Silverlight demo from Intel Developer Forum in Beijing showed up in a full deep dive into Haswell. So there you go. Good something to put you to sleep. But yeah, you won't be listening to it on your Android or iOS device. It's Silverlight only. You need a computer. Yeah.
Make sure you're on Windows.
Oh, and Kevin, SATA
Yeah.
Express, that's going to be coming out next year, next summer.
Yep, it should be coming pretty quickly here. And you're talking about the laptop functionality. Think about that much performance built into the chipsets on laptops as well. So got a lot of performance things to look forward to.
Some exciting times. I think we've got some good stuff coming up indeed. Well, guys, we could literally talk all night. And we've been going a while now. I don't want the listeners to get too fatigued. I got a few things to add in here, but I'll give anybody one last shot. Anything else you guys want to say before we bust out of this thing?
The only other thing that comes to mind, and I think each of us kind of said it. John and Paul hit on it as well, and I had it in the notes and didn't touch on it. Is you got to pick out what's comfortable to you. If some folks love trackpads, some folks love the track points, and in corporate America we seem to be tied up on the track point idea. Occasionally on laptops, just the way I use a laptop these days, I feel like I have to have a backlit keyboard, and that's something that some people might not view as being something they need. So there's tons of options out there, tons of functions. You can do some pretty outrageous searching online, and the average guy Facebook page is a great place to just kick around, and if you're thinking about what you need, definitely ask up there, because we'll get a lot more input on what other people have used. So don't be shy.
All right, I think that's a good way to wrap up the laptops here. We're going to do one more session on laptops. I've got Mike Howard coming back. Maybe we'll try and sneak Paul back in as well to talk about. Mike's going to come in and talk about the Surface. He had extensive work with the Surface, and so he's going to talk a little bit about that. And he will also talk about his new yoga. And we'll kind of continue on in this process. I'm going to talk a little bit about my laptops and laptop experience, and maybe accessories and bags again. So that will be coming up. In fact, I should remind folks. Let me just do a quick check of the schedule. I think no live show next week, so you have next week off. Let me just double check and make sure that is the case. Yes, no, I have a wedding next weekend. It's going to be all weekend, so no Thursday night show next week, May 9th, if you are keeping track. That's May 9th, 2013, so if it's past that date, you don't need to worry about it, but no live show if you're listening live now, or the recorded version, no live show next week. And then we're back on the 16th with like I said, with Mike, and actually we're going to bring in Eddie Ramirez. I'm going to talk about a post from Eddie here in just a second. Eddie's going to come in as well, and we're going to talk about some that yoga. And actually, Eddie's got some questions about something else. So hang tight. You'll want to listen to that on the 16th. That is coming up. Okay, as many of you know, we posted out at theaverageguy.tv. Got an opportunity to hang out with Cali Lewis and Mario Blandini from Drobo on Tuesday night. If you're on the Facebook page, you saw pictures. We posted a picture with Cali and my daughter and my wife. We just had a great time, and Cali is just everything nice that you see online. Cali is that way in real life, and she's out there at geekbeat.tv. If you like to follow consumer products and you want it with a really nice, friendly bend to it, Cali is the gal that you want to watch, and she was just fantastic. We got to go out there. We talked a little bit about Drobo. In fact, we did some interviews during the meetup that will make their way to a show near you. So you might want to listen. It's going to come in the feed. I haven't figured out how I'm going to get them to you, but they will show up in this home tech feed, and you will want to hear them coming up here in the next couple weeks. So they're still coming out. I want to thank Dennis Howling and Greg Gerke. Dennis is from Lincoln, and Greg is from Omaha, two local listeners of both Home Service Show and this show. And guys, thanks for coming out and being a part of it. I got a chance to interview them as well, so always good. If you are in the Omaha, Lincoln, Des Moines area, even Kansas City, and we do these meetups, we'd love to meet you. So come on up, and it would be great to meet you if you come up and do that. So let me mention, so I mentioned Eddie Ramirez just a second ago. He put out a post, and the link I will put in the show notes. And he was talking about that Motorola SB6141 that we talked about way back. I forget which show that was as well. I should look these up before the show so I know, but it doesn't matter. Go back and look. We talked about increased internet speeds. And that seems to have picked up some momentum, and a couple folks have bought those and gone from DOCSIS 2 to DOCSIS 3 if you're with Cox Communications. That seems to really increase the speed, even if you're not paying for any more speed. And then I just mentioned in a show back, Cox just doubled my speed, and I couldn't figure out why. And then we found out this week that CenturyLink is bringing gigabit Ethernet to Omaha. So not just Google can do it, I guess. CenturyLink is going to start with 24,000 folks out in West Omaha. And if they can make some money off of it, they're going to roll it out to the entire city. So we might have gigabit up and down coming. Now, I live in Bellevue. They'll probably never get here. I live in a community south of Omaha. So I may never see that, but I'm getting some pretty good speed from Cox. So 60 down, 15 up at this point, and I love it. I will mention to you, if you go out to theaverageguy.tv/gear, I just posted, I said I'd do that last week, and I'll mention it again this week. All the gear that we used at Infotech is now posted. So if you're thinking about podcasting or you want some upgraded equipment to do Skype or Hangouts or what have you, there's certainly I found some inexpensive ways to do it. So if you head out to theaverageguy.tv/gear, all that is posted out there. And, of course, those are affiliate links. If you purchase through that. And, by the way, we had a record month in April, and that's going to be good. I'm going to tell you about that here in just a second. We had a record month for Chromebook. It's going to not quite yet, but we may get there, Christian. If we now you made me lose my train of thought. We are doing great, and you guys are clicking through the link. If you go to theaverageguy.tv/Amazon, or click through any affiliate link on the site, we make a couple bucks. About 4% of whatever you purchase doesn't cost you any more, and we roll those into giveaways. And speaking of giveaways, the next one we're going to do is going to be a $100 Amazon gift card. So it's cash, right? And it's super simple. So you're the first ones to hear this if you're listening live. If you're listening to the recorded version, sorry, you should come out live Thursday nights, 8 o'clock at theaverageguy.tv/live. But $100, all you need to do at this point is join us in the Facebook group. That's all you need to do. And if you're already in the Facebook group, guess what? You're already entered in it. So how easy is that? All you guys I know are in the Facebook group. You're already entered, and you are eligible, by the way. Just because you're a host on this one does not make you ineligible. But a $100 gift card, all you need to do is come out to the group, facebook.com/group/theaverageguy. You'll have to ask for permission. We keep that kind of a closed group just to keep the spammers and flamers and those kinds of knuckleheads out of the group. Join the group. I'll give you permission. Come on in. When we hit, right now we're at 138 members. When we hit 250, everybody's name goes in a hat. I'm going to draw it out. Okay, so we have to hit 250. So what I want you to do is if we don't get to 250, we're not going to give the money away. So I want you to, if you haven't signed up yet, I want you to come out, facebook.com/groups/theaverageguy.tv. It'll be in the show notes. Join us. It's a great group. We have a great conversation. Just love for you to be a part of that group. It's one way for me to communicate with you. I don't do newsletters or get your email or any of the other stuff that a lot of the podcasters do. But it would be good to communicate you from time to time through Facebook. And if you don't use Facebook, I'm sorry. But join us out in Facebook in the group when we get to 250. And so this might take a few of you telling your friends to come on out and join us for some great tech conversation. Find nice guys. Don't get the jerks to join us. Get the really nice, helpful tech guys to come in and join us, and we hit 250. We'll give away $100 in an Amazon gift card. So let's get that done in the next couple of weeks. Super easy, nothing to fill out. All you got to do is join us over at the facebook.com/group/theaverageguy.tv. All right, I think I covered anything. Christian, anything else for you?
That's about it on my end.
All right. Kind of a quiet night for you.
Well, I wanted to let everyone do their little laptop thing, so
Yeah.
I do have things lurking in the show notes from a couple shows ago when I had to miss one. So
Yeah, good. Well, we'll certainly bring you back on for that one.
Yeah.
And get caught up on that. So no show next week. We're back with laptops the week after that. And then I kind of have an open format. We've actually been talking a little bit about what the series idea that we've been doing has been working really well, where we do 2 or 3 shows. We started on home networks. We're talking about laptops. I'm trying to pick the next one. There's a home automation idea that's out there, but certainly we're listening to you. If you've got an idea or something you want us to cover, send me an email, podcast@theaverageguy.tv, post it in that Facebook group, and we will think about doing a series. We've got all these hosts out there that got a plethora of knowledge on all kinds of different stuff, and they just jump in and do a great job. So, guys, thanks for coming out tonight, and Paul and Kevin and John, thank you for being a part of it. Christian, always great to have you on the show. And if you're listening to this podcast live, or if you haven't found a way to automatically listen to podcasts each week, let me just recommend Stitcher to you, right? Stitcher.com. Go out there, available on any platform, so Mac or Windows, available on iOS or Android. Any of those platforms, Stitcher is available. You can download it to your phone. It will automatically subscribe you to the podcast, so you can get it every single week and not have to worry about missing an episode out there. So go Stitcher.com, sign up for it, search Home Tech, and get registered. And then you can listen to it in the car, listen to it at work, or what have you. You'll never miss an episode of Home Tech again. We also have a small little financial show that we're doing called Financial Tech with Andrew Hunt. We do a weekly market commentary. It's 10 minutes. 10 minutes of your time. I'd love for you guys to go out there and give me some feedback on it. We're trying to really just make it a very quick podcast to give you 10 minutes of market information each week about your finances. So if you get a chance, that's just called Financial Tech. It's available at theaverageguy.tv as well as on Stitcher. Have a listen to that and give me some feedback on that as well. All right, we'll wrap it up tonight. Stay around for the post show, if you will. Some of the best conversation happens in the post show, and we doesn't make it on the recorded content unless it's really good or really funny. And we'll stay around for a little bit of chat if we can. So thanks for coming out tonight, guys. Thanks for being with us tonight. That'll be it for the recorded part of the show. Good night, everybody.